Hello everyone, I am CS Priya Gulani, your ACCA mentor for business technology. In the last part of our video, we have seen the different kind of organization structure, the methodology used for certain structures, scalar chain, span of control. We have gone through it. What is that? How does it affect the organization structures? What kind of organization structure has what kind of scalar chain and span of control? Next topic we would be covering is outsourcing and offshoring. What do we understand by outsourcing? Let's go through the definition. Contracting with an external firm to perform a task. If for some function, for example HR or IT, we do not want to have a full-fledged department into our organization, what do we generally do is we outsource that task to some other party. Those are the third parties who will be managing our work but not the employees of our organization, and they would be charging according to their fees or commission. Offshoring is transferring operations to a different country. If I talk about some operations, for example, there are many US companies who operate the entire functions into their country, but try and open the call centers in our country, in Pakistan, in Indonesia, all the developing countries, for the cost cutting purposes or for the more labor availability purposes. So that is called offshoring. So outsourcing is done when you are contracting with an external firm to perform a certain task, but offshoring is when different country organizations transfer their operation to another country, that is offshore. So organization can outsource. What do outsource? Usually the main activities, the core activities. For example, if I talk about the production of a certain product, but you cannot outsource the production department itself. What you can outsource is any activity which is not a core activity, which is a non-core activity, or I can say where you can use a shared services. If we have already seen in our last part, what are the shared services, the IT services, the HR services. So these are the non-core activities. So organization can pass on such activities. Then offshoring is transferring some activities to a different country, and the organization itself will look out for those activities. The employees will be considered for that organization itself. It's just that operates in a different country. So here the employees are yours. Here it is been given to the external party. The employees are not yours. These are the differences. Now if I look about the advantages and disadvantages of offshoring is, first of all, the very most important thing or advantage if I look for offshoring is, why do we transfer it to some different country? Why do we open into some other country, get the employee hires from their country? Is cost saving, because it saves a lot of labor cost or the property cost. We have a offshoring thing done. Favorable forex rates helps us reduce the cost. Another advantage is closer to local markets. If our product is been sold to that country more of, and we have a team already there in that country, so what happens is we become closer to the local market of that. It brings us closer to the customers, it brings us closer to the markets operating there. But there are certain disadvantages also for offshoring is loss of control, because you are into different time zones, because you are into different country, the different laws applicable, there is certain control which you lose on because of the distances. So there is some loss of management control. Then again, another disadvantage is you may face the challenges regarding the language and the culture. Working style is different, the preferences are different, the holidays, the festivals are different. So there is a language and culture barrier which makes a little bit difficult to align your work with the work of that particular country. Suppose there are Diwali holidays, you're already packed for 10 days, you won't be working. But in other countries, that is the peak season for them to work. So it gets a little bit difficult. Then comes distribution cost. So when a company manufacturing operations offshore that you produce for us, what happens is maybe you need to transport that manufactured goods back to your country. If we give some of our manufactured goods to get produced in China, what happens from China to India? You have to get your goods traveled back to your own country, so this can increase your distribution cost as well. So outsourcing and offshoring are different, but again they can also be combined. Like for example, if we want to get our work done in a different country, and we are doing our work in a different country and we are outsourcing it as well, so what happens is we have combined it. For example, a company that sells branded fashion clothes in the UK may outsource clothing production to an independent supplier in Bangladesh. So there is outsourcing, there is offshoring as well. The next topic is Robert Antony's level of management. Robert Antony has defined certain levels of management from senior management to junior management, that this is how you define your hierarchy in the management. The topmost takes the strategic decision, then the middle one takes the tactical, that is the hand to hand decisions which they have to take, and the lower level employees usually get the work done, the operational tasks they do. This is to be done, execution is to be done from the lower level employees, then there are some tactical. So what are these are the Robert Antony's level of management, which we will be going through in detail. Strategic means strategic management, all the decisions of the organization, what should be the business objective of the company, how the policies should run, what will be the strategy to carry forward your business. So these all are the strategic decisions which the core management, the main owner or maybe the board of directors, they take such decisions. Now what are the tactical level management level is where you put the middle level managers to control the business, to see what the operational level people are doing, to have the medium level of authority with them. So these are the tactical level where you do the allocation of resources, you do the planning thing, that okay, this is the objective, the objective is defined, now to achieve this objective what planning should be needed, that is to be done by the tactical team. Then you prepare the annual budgeting, you do the midterm planning, the implementation. Now this is the planning you have done, now how it is to be implemented, that is to be decided by the tactical team. And operational are the junior managers or supervisors who carry the operational management, that means day to day short term decisions, they see how the team is working. So this is according to the Antony's hierarchy, it is the lowest level of management work. So there are, according to Robert Antony's, there are three levels of management: strategic, tactical, operational. Then there is a term known as centralization and decentralization. What do we understand by this? In a centralized organization, the senior management is the one who is sitting at the head office, and he is the top management and he takes the entire decision, and the decision making power is not delegated, only the functional power is delegated, the departments are distributed, but he is the only one who will be taking the whole and sole one decision. But in decentralized organization, what do we do is decisions tend to be made more local. That means they divide the work, and then the entire division is being looked after by that particular person. So this is what decentralization of power, that you have given the roles, responsibilities as well as the authority to that other person. This is known as centralization and decentralization. Now what is the importance of IT in centralized and decentralized structure is when you have to flow the information. So usually managers get the data they share. So centralized decision making, what happens is if you have a particular data centralized, so you have that lower management hierarchy who needs to centralize decision making, needs information from the lower management hierarchy, and then that information passes on to the centralized organization. So a repository is being created that actually, okay, this is the centralized system, now this is how it works. So there is local office, the information gets passed on to the junior managers, then senior managers, and then the centralized organization looks after it. What happens is, this is the decision maker, the data is coming from here, the data is coming from here, and from here. For example, this is division A, this is division B, and then there is one repository which is being maintained at a centralized level. But decentralized level, what happens is, they need information from higher to lower, because they are the one who are the decision makers, but they are passing on the information to the junior managers, and then again these are passing on information again back to the senior managers. So a central information depository may also share information with decentralized decision makers. If I look after the advantages and disadvantages of centralization and decentralization, we can see the advantages: first, senior management can exert much more control over the business, but the disadvantage is, it's not that easy to exert control over a company, because if you are working into a wide geographical area, so it's not that easy. Another is, centralized decisions ensure that one standardized thing is been done. There are not too many things which are being routed, because again, if you decentralize the power, you get too many opinions. And disadvantage is, decisions may need to reflect local conditions which you may not be aware, because you are sitting at the centralized position maybe in some different country, and in another situations or in another geographical area something else is required, then that gets hampered or delayed. Centralized decision making, it is easier to establish rules because there is only one person who is taking the decision, and that decision can be easily flowed into. But disadvantages is, local management can make the decisions more quickly. Okay, this is the problem, this is the solution, then and there. But if you have a centralized system, then you have to pass on that problem to one layer, second layer, and then to the centralized layer, then they will decide, they will pass on to the next layers, so it becomes difficult and the time also gets delayed. Then the advantage for having a centralized system is, it is easier to coordinate decisions because they are taken centrally. One organization or one department is there who's taking the whole and sole decision, so it's easier to coordinate, just go to them and see what can be done. But the disadvantages are, local managers, junior managers usually understand the details of what actually is been required in that particular division, because they are working into day-to-day operations with that particular problem. So they are more operational, they can solve problem in a more better way because they work at that ground level. Advantages: when decisions require a high degree of expertise, an expert at the head office can take decisions. And disadvantages is, the junior managers may feel like, if the entire decision has to be taken by the head office only, why am I even required here? So there is a lack of trust, or maybe there can be certain decisions which you do not approve of, so there can be a lack of motivation involved. These are the advantages and disadvantages. And if I talk about the advantages and disadvantages of decentralized system, so it's just the opposite. Advantages are, you can control easily because you are decentralized, then there is local staff who's looking daily into the operations, so the decisions can be taken well, decisions can be taken quickly. But the disadvantage will be, the senior management do not left with more power, they may not know much about it, then it is not easier, some of the inaccuracy can be observed because of the different level of departments. So these are just the reverse of the centralization. So yes, we have already covered the entire chapter saying how the business organizational structures work, what are the organizations, how the organization structures are there, what factors affect the type of organization structure you have. So we have covered the organizational structure topic. Thank you so much.